Whether you are a tree hugger or a scientist or a parent or grandparent, an outdoor enthusiast or a resident of Florida this month, we can all agree that Mother Earth is in desperate need of our attention. It's not a one-word single message that she has for us, though. It's a longer, deeper conversation that requires serious listening to hear those layers. Sometimes we hear a call of joy at the beauty and splendor of nature. We see the persistence of life and know that we are part of something truly magical. Other times, reading the news or looking around, we hear of Earth's pain. We humans have inflicted tremendous destruction on our home. For some of us, when we hear or listen closely to the message, it's about interconnectedness. Others hear a teaching of a sense of order, perhaps a very old order that we are called to return to. I have a deep faith that she is teaching us a right way if we are able to listen. There's no single, simple answer from the earth. The messages, in fact, are many. I'm reminded of a movie I once saw. The primary character in this film, in this scene, was a woman from a Jewish background and was having a crisis of faith. As she went into a fertility clinic to try in vitro fertilization, she refused to pray. In her experience, God had not followed through with her prayers so far, and she didn't want to bring God into this deeply held hope and private moment. It felt too vulnerable to invite him in when she might be disappointed yet again. But her agnostic friend who was there with her, knowing how important prayer had been in the patient's past, insisted that she pray. And she said, maybe God is complicated. Maybe sometimes stubborn and we don't understand. Maybe sometimes God is busy or just not paying attention. It could be. And the patient's response was so wise. Maybe you're right. Maybe God is complicated and unpredictable, kind of like me. Today, I offer the possibility that maybe the wisdom of the earth is also complicated. Maybe there are many different things for us to listen for. Sometimes it's hope, sometimes it's warning, sometimes it's nurturing, sometimes it's destruction. We have a great opportunity to learn and hear from a teacher who is complicated, just like we are. A primary source of our Unitarian Universalist tradition that I don't hear lay people, that's you, talking about very often is that every person has direct experience of the transcendent mystery. It's that deeper awareness that we know in our bones sometimes. It doesn't take long to hear nature's message when we open ourselves to it. You can see it in simple things like grass breaking up through the pavement, or big, complicated things like the epic of evolution. The call to celebrate the beauty of life is all around us in a flood of senses. It is pleasure for our eyes, our ears, our tongue, our skin. It's a tremendous variety of color, of darkness and lightness and human hands, and each person has an opportunity to directly encounter that holiness. It is as true and as valid as religion gets, that experience. These magnificent pieces of creation were not made for human pleasure. Geology is random. Biology serves a purpose rooted in natural selection. This beauty and variety were not created for our consumption. Still, it is here before us. To close our eyes and our ears to that beauty is an affront to earth itself. As much as I can say that anything is blasphemous in this world, it would be closing ourselves off, ignoring the abundant garden that is our home. Earth calls us to celebrate the beauty of life, and in jarring ways, she reminds us of the tremendous pain and suffering we have inflicted. Sometimes we see it in littered areas. More recently, I have been astounded at the amount of trash in the ocean just along the coast. It's truly jarring when you're out there on a boat. Sometimes we smell the smog in the air. Those who are attuned to it may notice the dramatic decrease in the songbirds or the humming of insects. More and more, we know that weather patterns are changing as the earth struggles to keep up. It's hard sometimes for our very simple animal human brains to grasp because the impact is delayed, or at least it seemed slow. Now it is catching up with us. But the momentum is building. I learned recently that the carbon emissions that are already in the air commit us to at least another half-century of rapid global warming. If we completely stopped everything today, we would be committed to another 50 years of rapid global warming. It's frightening not just for us, but for those that we love. I'm not thrilled about what's happening or what will play out in my lifetime, but it pales in comparison to what befalls coming generations. And it's a truly global reality. Some areas will be more impacted than others, but there is no getting out of this impact on this little blue marble of ours. It's strange to say, but environmental issues and degradation is forcing us to take seriously universalism. The fact that our salvation is all tied up together. Our fate is the same fate as everyone else's. No one gets a free pass at this. But the Earth's call isn't all about doom and gloom. It's also about deep-rootedness and the profound truth that I feel, and I know most of us have felt in nature. That stirring is probably the most common thing that Unitarian Universalists talk about when they're forced to talk about their own spiritual lives. It's simply a feeling that's available to all of us. You've probably heard of the Transcendentalists as a literary movement. Walt Whitman, Margaret Fuller, Emily Dickinson, Henry David Thoreau, and of course, Ralph Waldo Emerson. Even if you haven't read them, admittedly, I have not read much of them, you are familiar with their names. They were a group of friends who were intellectual powerhouses. Beyond being brilliant people, they were writing at a really important time of American history. They were creating a new American literature in the early 1800s, this distinctly American culture. This was also the time when Unitarianism was differentiating itself from the rest of Protestant Christianity. All these brilliant writers, these transcendentalists, were Unitarians. And their philosophy still today rests at the foundation of our Unitarian theology. even when we've let go of a lot of that Christian heritage. Transcendentalists believe deeply in the richness of this world, both the beauty and the strife of it. They believe it is there for our experience and our learning. For Emerson and his peers, the only way to experience the sacred was to reach out and experience it for ourselves. It is up to you and you alone. Not books, and definitely not churches, Emerson would have told us. The real worthwhile religion is found in personal encounter. Now, the reading from this morning may have seemed a little bit out of place. Perhaps you remember Sandra Fees was talking about the Vedanta philosophy includes two interrelated concepts of the self. One is the individual self, and the other is the universal self. That individual self is our memories, desires, emotions, thoughts, and experiences. The universal self is awareness of belonging to one's own, belonging not to one's own body or mind. Scott, that tripped me up too, that phrase. It doesn't see the universe as different from oneself. Instead, this universal self is unchanging, a consciousness which underlies everything. I chose that reading today because that core teaching of Hinduism impacted those transcendentalists that shaped our faith and our understanding of nature. Yes, in the 1800s, our Unitarian predecessors were reading Hindu scriptures. And those same transcendentalists laid the groundwork for our understanding. Now, when most of us think about Hinduism, we think about the diversity of different gods and bright colors and probably some noisy spaces and fragrances, and all of that is true. And also, at the core of the tradition is a belief in a unity that makes us one. Each of us is composed of two different sources of self. Atman is the stuff that makes us individually unique. It's our unique wisdom, our unique body, our unique experience, our unique love. It's the particularity that makes us special. That's Atman. The other piece of us is Brahman. It's that life energy that infuses everything, every little animal, all throughout creation. It is in all of us, and it is the same in everything. So to describe the relationship between these two, Atman and Brahman, in our experience, a metaphor of salt in water has often been used. Ancient Hindu texts talk about Atman, or one's individual spirit, as salt which has been dissolved in the Brahman. The salt still exists in the water. It is still there. It is still important. But it is indistinguishable, inseparable in its natural resting state without a whole lot of work. According to Hinduism, the goal of life is to recognize the simple fact that one's individual spirit, their Atman, is inseparable from that bigger universal spirit. In this way, even while there is a saltiness, a uniqueness to each person, we are fundamentally one with each other and everything else. The thing that really gets in our way of satisfaction is our misperception of that separation. The very foundations of American Unitarianism borrowed directly from Hindu belief. We strive to be ever more aware of our interdependent web, and we seek out a direct experience and awareness of the beauty that connects us. Now, Unitarian Universalists are not just a people of feelings and ideas. We are also people of action. So before wrapping up, I want to talk about possibilities to listening more closely to Earth's call. And rather than giving you a laundry list of things you should not be doing or things that you should let go of because you really don't need them, I want to offer an invitation to build a deeper relationship. I believe that Earth calls us to celebrate what is good, what is beautiful, what is life-affirming, what keeps us connected to our home. So I have 3 suggestions to think about. Live with the seasons, stay close to the ground, and honor the earth. As we settle into some genuine fall weather, which I love, it's a great time to remember to live with the seasons. There is a time for every purpose under heaven, a time for strawberries and melons, a time for acorn squash, a time for basking in the sun, and a time to cuddle up with a blanket and a cup of tea. Live with these seasons, plant with them, celebrate them, anticipate them. Yes, they're a little harder to recognize here in Southern California, but they do exist. In our native plant garden here at Tapestry, we've been waiting until November when what little rain we do have returns, and new plants have a better chance at taking root. In our climate, the wet, deep fall is the best time for planting. You might also consider eating more seasonally, even from that big box grocery store. Broccoli and beets and pears and peppers and root vegetables are all being harvested right in our backyard right now, locally this season. Let each season be what it will be, and celebrate the variety between them. The second suggestion, stay close to the ground. Maybe not like Scott does, diving face first into it, but walk or roll where you are going. And go where you can walk. Choose road trips rather than long flights. If you can, live closer to family. Sit on the steps or the curb or a fallen log if you find one of those. Dig up some root vegetables. Pick up trash from the ground when you see it. Get to know your neighbors and plant food where you can, even on a balcony. Lie on your back and watch the stars. That's hard to do around here, but you can watch the clouds. Connection with the earth, either metaphorical or actual physical, nurtures our spirit. The final recommendation is to honor the earth. One author that I ran across this week said, if you've forgotten how, then think of how you honor a very elderly grandmother. You might honor by visiting her, by spending time, by holding her hand, telling her stories of how she cared for you. Bring small gifts. Listen to her very carefully, making sure that she is cared for and presentable and that other people are kind to her. The earth is equally beloved and holy as that grandmother. So live with the seasons, stay close to the ground, and honor the earth. The earth sometimes yells out, as is happening or happened last week in Florida. But more often, she shares a gentle, wise whisper that can change our lives if we listen. Amen.